The liberation of Macedonia was quite an eye-opener for Lysimachus. Clearly not the greatest of commanders, the casualties came out higher than expected. It left the young prince with doubt and being scared to continue his push further down Mesopotamia. On the positive side, Araba was independent once more, granting us a bit of protection from the reanimated Seleucid Empire. Egypt was starting to look like a first-class province with higher standards of living than anywhere in the world, especially with the investments to make the Bosporus a massive trade hub. This huge amount of gold allowed us to pay the maintenance cost for our 2 fleets that are now operating in the Agates. Of course, the Odysseus fleet is only there to assist our pharaoh in reaching Gaul. However, he was still quite a march away, giving our fleet plenty of time to raid Sicily. Still, as foolish as the Romans now are, they decided the best plan of action to stop our raids was to take the battle to us. Idiots. Their 2 armies approached in 2 waves, a massive mistake as this allowed us to focus them down one at a time. The best thing of all is certainly that transports are no match to our humongous ships. It allowed us to sail directly in between the enemy formations, ramming each and every one of them. With the first Roman army struggling to stay afloat, we redirected our focus upon the 2nd Legion at swift speed. There really was no doubt regarding who came out on top here. We ruled the Agates, not Carthage. And certainly not Rome. The world called this a heroic victory. But the world is stupid. If you asked any Egyptian to predict the outcome of this battle, all would point at us as the victors. Despite us obliterating 2 Roman legions in one engagement, their presence on the island was still significant compared to what we had to offer. Yet that didn't stop us from blockading most of their ports again, but the garrisoned Roman legion at Panormus repelled our attack, instead causing our navy to fall back. The Odysseus fleet would still make its presence known by sacking Akragas once again. I feel so sorry for the ones living there. The wonders I envision to be part of our supreme kingdom will require more elaborate crane mechanics for their construction. Like, how are we supposed to improve the pyramids without this? Slaves perhaps? But that would lead to major casualties, which is bad for business. Those slaves should instead be used to revolutionize the lands of Libya to be almost equally as desirable as Egypt itself. Without the Nile, of course, but still lucrative. In the meantime, Junior had completed his task in monitoring the Arabian conflict. The Nabateans were powerful and strong, however their many setbacks have left them scattered. Thus they were mustering a new force here at Petra. Yet with the reinforcements from Hierosolima to back him up, Junior attempted to lure the Nabateans out into a field battle. The Achilles fleet, full of supplies and a lust for plunder, decided to go on a voyage towards the port on the eastern side of their little peninsula. It will be dangerous and rough, however I'm sure it will be possible with the right amount of ships from the Odysseus fleet too. It was around this time we received an outrageous offer from a Carthaginian captain wanting to patrol our shores. Do they think of us as their vassals or something? A nation such as ours will never be looked down upon, and especially not from a ragtag band of merchants. However, maybe we should be more careful, as the curse from the Punic gods seemed to have ignited a plague in Alexandria, a catastrophe that can get out of hand quickly if we aren't careful. To our luck, parts of the Nabatean forces guarding Petra had disappeared into the fog of war. Predicting they wouldn't return, Junior laid siege to their ancient neighbor. And to the surprise of no one, They weren't happy about this and sallied out with well over 8,000 men. As we approached the enemies, we realized that 2-to-1 advantage would be the death of us if we tried to match them in width. So instead, Junior, the conqueror of Ethiopia and Libya, chose depth and bent flanks to make sure the enemy wouldn't get around us. However, as the Nabateans made room for their reinforcements in the center, it left their skirmishers wide open for our cavalry, which had a direct line straight into them. Once the reinforcements eventually arrived, we swiftly escaped to flank around again and finish off the battle by rear-charging the pinned down units. Most effective of all were our elephants that caused terror and fear amongst the enemy ranks, leading to breaking, which just made them easier to kill. Knowing they betrayed us despite of our history and long friendship, we couldn't just enslave them. Killing the captives was our only option in this situation. The man wanted for the murder of a Carthaginian officer we helped flee escaped safely and gave us 2,000 gold as a gift. However, the Carthaginians felt insulted by this, deteriorating our relations with them even further. I fear, despite our best efforts to support them through military assistance, these events off of the battlefield might lead to another conflict. We'll do our best to halt it, but it will be a challenge for sure. Their Numidian vassals still despise us. We are crossing fingers they won't mess up anything again. As Europus was somewhat secured from Mesopotamia, and with Egypt now at war with the Nabateans, the young Lysimachus offered his army in aid to his older brother, who by now had taken Petra. Not that he really needs that extra assistance. Like Alexander's Ethiopia was such an experienced army, they had been gifted the honor of a provincial guard. It was the first Egyptian army to receive such a high praise. His army did take quite a beating. However, all Junior had to do was to turn back to the barracks of Jerusalem to replenish. Our ploy to wedge ourselves in between the Galatians and the Pergamonians didn't work. Iconium had once again fallen into the hands of the Greeks. Sometimes I wonder what their ambitions truly are. Hopefully not as dramatic as ours, with us fighting so far away from home. We came to realize the Romans occupied ports in both sides of the Adriatic, in Greek lands from where the famous Pyrrhus once ruled. At first the Achilles fleet debated whether to liberate Apollonia in honor of the fallen comrade. However, after scouting their garrison and knowing the potential wealth we could loot from the ports further up the coast, this town was spared, for now. The foul Romans had begun mustering a new army in Sicily, or at least tried to. However, Damianus, our exceptional hero, snuck into his tent at night, wounding the Roman legatus, ruining their schemes. The legend of Damianus, the strategic genius, is progressing nicely due to his valor and single combat mastery. Ptolemy was well on his way. Yet during his travels he got disrupted by the Massaceae, who intended to keep a close eye on us so long we marched through Carthaginian lands. For safety reasons, in case they attacked, we paid for a few local mercenaries to accompany us. An expensive endeavor, but so is life. A spy of ours discovered that Trapad Khan were making a bold attempt at retaking the capital. However, with this being a harsh summer, I doubt they will succeed. It was the same argument Lysimachus listened to as he returned to Europus. The plan of attack wasn't spoiled yet. All he required was a baggage train to supply his army into the Arabian desert. Back in the Adriatic, our Achilles fleet at last reached the Roman shores. However, being well prepared for our inevitable approach, A legion was already in place at Asculum. Yet they forgot we could just sail further up the coast and set Ariminum on fire instead, which we promptly did before sailing away again. After we refused the Carthaginian captain in patrolling our shores, he mentioned how he respected our decision. However, actions speak louder than words, as the rest of his unspeakable behavior showed how insulted they truly were. After our raid on Ariminum, we were about to run out of rations, forcing us to return back to Alalia. We quickly snatched whatever we could from the now undefended port Asculum and set sail. Getting back was critical, as the pharaoh had reached the outskirts of Carthage, from where his journey would continue by sea. With a new baggage train and by facing colder weather, Lysimachus once again departed into Arabia. By now, some of the endless sums of wealth acquired from Italy had returned home. So one of the first things we did was invested into our farming settlements in Syria. We received some bad news regarding the plague. Not only did it spread to Greece, but also Memphis, another major Egyptian town. This was a crisis causing death and famine in our so luxurious lands. No one knew how to stop it. All we could do was hope we will outlast it. We did send a physician from Phoenicia to examine the plague, perhaps find a cure. Furthermore, all our researchers were assigned to Diopta, a way of measuring the stars to optimize civilization to perhaps lower the chances of a plague such as this one spreading. As we left the Adriatic, our fleet discovered yet another set of legions on their way to Sicily. We must have caused quite a fuss if they require 4 legions to seize our raids. To be fair, the Carthaginian presence was increasing as well, ever since we joined the fight, so in a way it is justified. The dread commander Scipio launched an attack on our less experienced Odrysian fleet. Feeling intimidated by the Romans and knowing their crucial role in transporting Ptolemy to Gaul, the fleet retreated from this battle. A shame, as we slightly lose our grip on the seas, but it is well worth it so we can let our plans progress smoothly. Speaking of plans, Junior had little trouble in capturing Petra. If the Nabateans even had any armies left, they are too far away to change what is happening to them now. Part of our preparations for this campaign in Gaul was sending over a spy to study their culture, learning their diplomatic relations, who is fighting who, and so on. Apart from the Carthaginian armies, we saw the entire coastline was occupied by a Greek colony known as Massalia. If we are to set foot on these shores, war with them is inevitable. Luckily, they are in a heated conflict with the Gallic tribe known as Avernia. This barbarian faction here is in desperate need of help, being outmatched in every struggle. Perhaps we can be what they require in order to survive. Only time will tell, as there are still a few days before we actually arrive. However, with both our fleets in the Agates, it left our own coastlines unguarded. Pirate cells erupted all across our empire. The worst thing is, there was nothing we could do. Perhaps we should have accepted the Carthaginians' proposal for them patrolling our coast. Or maybe it was all they're doing. Further north of that, the Galatians were getting a major beating, with their capital Ankara being besieged by the Pergamonians. At least they are too focused on each other and not us. Now that would have been a problem. Speaking of problems, our spy keeping an eye on the Seleucids discovered the whereabouts of Antiochus himself. He had disappeared for quite a while, with many of the nobles even believing him to be dead. No, in fact he had just defeated the Atropatkan offense and is now gathering all his forces here in the mountains. This could be bad.